In the end, love wasn't found in wealth, power, or status. It was found in humility, courage, and the quiet strength of a mother's heart. If this story moved you, make sure to subscribe to Black Journey for more powerful tales that celebrate Black life, resilience, and truth. The city skyline glittered in the night like a promise of dreams. Cars hurried across bridges, neon signs flickered on corners, and somewhere in the middle of it all stood a tall glass tower, the headquarters of one of the most powerful companies in America. Inside that tower, every wall spoke of success, polished floors, golden lights, executives in suits moving with purpose. At the very top, in the office that overlooked the world, sat a man who had everything: wealth beyond imagination, influence that stretched across countries, and a name known in business circles across the globe. His name was Marcus Cole. Marcus was a billionaire at just 36 years old, a Black man whose brilliance in finance and innovation had pushed him into a world where few who looked like him were allowed to thrive. He was admired, feared, and envied. Yet behind his powerful eyes and sharp words, there was a silence no one could hear, because what Marcus owned in money, he lacked in something deeper: connection. His heart was a fortress, guarded by the betrayals he had known, the false friends who had smiled at his fortune, but never at his soul. Women had come and gone, but every time he let one near, he discovered their love was more for his bank account than for the man himself. And far away from the glamour, in a quiet mansion just outside the city, a mother watched. Evelyn Cole was not the kind of woman who wore her son's wealth like a crown. She had raised Marcus with her bare hands after his father walked out, working 3 jobs, cleaning houses, serving food, and mending clothes just to keep him in school. Her pride was never in his money, but in the man she knew he could become: kind, strong, and whole. But as she sat in her armchair at night, she worried. Marcus was rich, yes, but he was lonely, empty, and suspicious of every woman who crossed his path. Evelyn wanted him to have what money could never buy: love that was pure, honest, and unshaken. One morning, Evelyn made a decision that surprised even her reflection in the mirror. She would not stand by and watch her son drown in mistrust. She would take matters into her own hands, and she would do it in a way only a mother could. She tied her gray hair into a bun, pulled out an old uniform from her days of cleaning houses, and buttoned it slowly. When she looked at herself, she didn't see the mother of a billionaire. She saw the woman who had once scrubbed floors to keep her child alive. She saw humility, she saw truth, and she thought, if Marcus cannot see real love, then I will find it for him, even if I must go undercover as a cleaner in his company to do it. The next week, a new cleaner appeared in Marcus's headquarters. Her name, she told the staff, was Mrs. Eve. No one suspected the truth. After all, who would imagine that the billionaire's mother was wiping tables and dusting blinds under fluorescent lights? Evelyn walked through the hallways with quiet grace, her eyes sharp, her ears listening. She wanted to see the women who worked near her son, the ones who laughed with him, argued with him, maybe dreamed of him. She wanted to know who was real and who was pretending. The office was full of ambition. Young women in sleek dresses carried files and laptops, hoping to impress Marcus. Their eyes often lingered on his strong shoulders and commanding voice. Evelyn saw how some adjusted their smiles when he walked by, how others dropped hints of their expensive tastes. She cleaned and listened. She saw everything, but she was searching for something different: kindness without calculation, warmth without motive. Days turned into weeks. Evelyn's hands grew rough again from cleaning, but her spirit was sharp as ever. Then one afternoon, as she was mopping near the elevators, she noticed a young woman carrying a heavy stack of files. Papers slipped and scattered across the floor, while others walked past, too busy or too proud to help. Evelyn saw her kneel down quickly, gathering the papers with quiet embarrassment. Evelyn stepped closer, but before she could move, another woman appeared. She wasn't dressed like the others. Her clothes were simple, her makeup barely there, her shoes plain. Yet she knelt beside the girl, helping her gather every paper without a word. Her hands moved fast, her eyes kind, her smile soft. That young woman's name was Naomi. She worked in accounting, far from the glamorous side of the company. She had grown up in the same kind of neighborhood Evelyn once knew: hard streets, little money, big dreams. Naomi didn't chase attention. She chased her work, her dignity, and her peace. Evelyn watched her closely. She noticed how Naomi treated the janitors with respect, how she greeted the security guards with genuine warmth, how she never altered her tone when speaking to people above or below her in position. She was the same with everyone, humble, steady, and real. But the true test came one late evening. Marcus had stayed behind, working in his office long after the others had gone. Evelyn was dusting nearby when she heard Naomi approach with a folder. Her voice was calm, professional. She handed Marcus the report he had requested. He nodded without much thought, his eyes still glued to his laptop. Most women in that moment would have tried to linger, to charm, to be noticed. But Naomi simply placed the file down and wished him a good night. No games, no lingering glances, no attempt to impress. She walked away with the same quiet grace she had arrived with. Evelyn's heart stirred. She saw what her son could not, that Naomi's simplicity was her strength. Over the next weeks, Evelyn found ways to be near Naomi. They spoke while Evelyn cleaned the break room, small conversations that revealed bigger truths. Naomi's father had died when she was a teenager, leaving her mother to raise 3 children alone. Naomi had worked through school, sometimes cleaning offices herself, just to pay tuition. She knew struggle, but she also knew resilience. She was proud, not bitter. She dreamed not of riches, but of stability, of building something honest with someone who valued her heart more than her appearance. One night, Evelyn returned home, her cleaner's uniform still smelling of dust and polish. She sat in her kitchen, the memories of Naomi fresh in her mind. She thought of how Marcus had hardened himself, how he believed every woman wanted his money. Evelyn whispered into the silence, "Son, if only you could see what I see. If only you could see Naomi." But she also knew the hardest part was yet to come. For Marcus would never trust easily. He would need more than a mother's word to believe in love. He would need to face Naomi himself, stripped of his power and wealth, to see if she would choose the man rather than the billionaire. And Evelyn was ready to make that happen, even if it meant risking her secret, even if it meant her son's anger, because a mother's love was stronger than fear. And so the stage was set, a billionaire locked inside his walls of mistrust, a young woman unaware of the eyes watching her, and a mother, disguised as a cleaner, weaving the threads of destiny in silence. The question remained, when truth met pride, when wealth met humility, when love stood against suspicion, would Marcus recognize the treasure standing right in front of him? The answer was waiting in the shadows of the next chapter. The next morning dawned heavy with rain, the city streets shining with reflections of headlights. Marcus arrived at the office earlier than usual, his mood clipped and sharp. He had grown weary of the constant smiles, the endless attention from women who seemed more interested in the cars he drove than the man who drove them. He poured his energy into work, drowning out the noise of loneliness with numbers and deals. What he did not know was that his mother, still disguised as the quiet cleaner, had already made a plan that would slowly dismantle his fortress of mistrust. Evelyn decided to start small. She arranged her cleaning schedule so that she was often near the accounting department, where Naomi worked. She noticed how Marcus, though polite, hardly looked Naomi's way. To him, she was another worker lost in the sea of employees. Evelyn, however, saw an opportunity. She began dropping hints during her nightly talks with Marcus at home, disguised carefully so her cover at work remained safe. "Marcus," she would say over dinner, "sometimes the best things in life are standing right in front of us, quiet and steady, not flashy." He would roll his eyes. "Mom, I don't have time for riddles. You know what women are like with me." Evelyn would only smile. "Not all of them, son, not all of them." One Friday evening, fate stepped in. A storm knocked out power in the building just as Marcus and a handful of employees were preparing to leave. The elevators stalled, the lights flickered, and for a brief moment, the mighty skyscraper felt like a cage. Marcus, irritated, decided to take the stairs. Halfway down, he crossed paths with Naomi, who was carefully helping an elderly receptionist carry her bag. The stairwell was dim, water dripping from a leak overhead. But in that moment, Marcus saw something he hadn't expected: Naomi's calm strength. She wasn't panicking. She wasn't complaining. She wasn't looking for him to fix anything. She was simply helping someone else, steady and sure. For the first time in a long time, Marcus felt something stir. It wasn't desire, it wasn't suspicion, it was curiosity. When the lights came back hours later, Marcus found himself replaying that moment in his mind. Who was she? This woman who seemed untouched by the chaos? Why had he never noticed her before? The following week, Evelyn watched from a distance as Marcus began asking subtle questions. He stopped Naomi one morning to thank her for helping during the blackout. Naomi only smiled lightly and replied, "Anyone would have done the same." Evelyn knew that wasn't true. Many would have looked out only for themselves. But Naomi's answer was simple, without pride, and Marcus for reasons he didn't yet understand, wanted to hear more from her. Days turned into conversations. Marcus found excuses to ask Naomi about her work, her family, her opinions. She answered with honesty, not flattery. When he spoke of his wealth, casually, almost as a test, she only nodded and turned the subject back to meaningful things. Her siblings' education, her mother's health, the importance of fairness in life. For once, Marcus felt seen not as a billionaire, but as a man speaking across a table to another human being. But suspicion still lingered. Could she really be genuine? Or was she simply cleverer than the rest? Marcus's wounds ran deep, and trust was a language he had forgotten how to speak. Evelyn saw the battle in his eyes and knew the time had come to push him further. One evening, as she cleaned the break room, she accidentally left her bucket near Naomi's desk. When Naomi noticed, she carried it back to Evelyn with a smile. Evelyn sighed and said, "Child, sometimes I wonder if people see me at all. Most just step over my things like I'm invisible." Naomi looked at her with soft eyes and said words that made Evelyn's heart swell. "No one who works hard is invisible. My mama used to clean houses. People acted like she wasn't there, but she kept our family alive with her hands. You remind me of her." Evelyn nearly broke her cover right there, tears rising in her chest, but she held them back. In that moment, she knew Naomi's heart was pure. Weeks later, Marcus decided to test her in his own way. He invited Naomi to dinner, not at a five-star restaurant, but at a small diner on the corner, the kind of place he hadn't been to in years. He wanted to see her reaction. When Naomi arrived, she didn't frown or hesitate. She looked around, smiled at the waitress, and said, "This place feels like home." Marcus laughed for the first time in months. Something was breaking inside him, and it wasn't fear. It was the wall around his heart. But just as love began to bloom, truth threatened to shatter it all. One late night, Marcus discovered his mother's secret. He had stayed at the office past midnight, and when he walked into the hallway, he found Evelyn, still in her cleaner's uniform, emptying a trash bin. For a moment, he couldn't believe his eyes. His mother, the woman he respected more than anyone, dressed as a janitor in his own company. "Mom?" His voice cracked. "What are you doing here?" Evelyn froze. The secret was out. She turned slowly, her eyes steady but sad. "Marcus, I was only trying to protect you." The conversation that followed shook the walls of their bond. Marcus felt betrayed, angry that she would humiliate herself this way. But Evelyn stood tall, her voice firm. "Son, I wore this uniform long before you had money. I scrubbed floors to put food on your plate. Don't you dare call it humiliation. I did this because you couldn't see what you needed to see. You've been blind, Marcus. Not every woman wants your wealth. Some women want your soul, and I found one." Her words pierced him. That night, Marcus sat alone in his grand mansion, staring at the silence. His mother's sacrifice echoed in his mind, her words refusing to leave. By morning, his anger had cooled into humility. He realized that Evelyn hadn't done this for herself. She had done it for him, and maybe, just maybe, she was right. The next week, Marcus asked Naomi to meet him at the park. No suits, no cars, no bodyguards. Just him in jeans and a simple jacket. They walked slowly under the autumn trees, the leaves crackling under their feet. Finally, Marcus stopped and turned to her. His voice was low, almost uncertain. "Naomi, I need you to know something. I'm not the man most people think I am. I'm afraid that no one can love me without my money getting in the way. But when I'm with you, I feel normal, seen, human, and I don't want to lose that." Naomi looked at him quietly and smiled the kind of smile that came from deep truth. "Marcus, I don't care about your money. I care about how you treat people, about how you carry yourself, about the man you are when no one's watching. If you can be that man, then you don't need to be afraid with me." For the first time in years, Marcus believed. His mother's plan had worked, not by trickery, but by reminding him that love, real love, is found in humility and courage. Months later, when Marcus and Naomi stood hand in hand, Evelyn watched from the front row with tears of joy. She no longer wore the cleaner's uniform. She wore pride, dignity, and the unshakable strength of a mother who had fought for her son's heart. The world saw a billionaire who had found a wife, but Evelyn saw something deeper, a man who had finally found himself, and a love that was not for sale. And in that truth lay the quiet victory of every black mother who had ever worked with tired hands, unseen and unpraised, but who had built empires in silence, not of money, but of love, dignity, and courage. Thank you for watching this story all the way through. If you felt the love, the sacrifice, and the strength of a mother's heart, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to Black Journey. Together, we celebrate amazing moms all over the world. See you in the next story.